All right, everyone, it's time for your daily dose of bonkers news from the United Kingdom. Brexit is still on, kinda, maybe. I'm not exactly sure at the moment. By a very slim margin, the Parliament there in the UK managed to force Boris Johnson to request an extension, which would kick Brexit beyond October 31st, which is like, at some point, it's because they're trying to kick the can down the road long enough to force a second referendum. The longer that they can hold out, the better the argument becomes for, well, the people may have changed their mind in the last however many years, and so we need to have another vote to be sure, which, honestly, I think would lead to another vote in favor of Brexit, possibly by even larger margins, but it takes a lot of time, and the UK in the meanwhile is humiliated. So he's, I guess, accepted that concept, but he refused to sign the letter that he sent over. Then he sent a second letter to the EU saying, well, we just want to have a hard Brexit, fuck the extension, and that one he signed. This has everyone, I guess, in uproar over there because they're like, oh, he's not doing his job, but he sent the letter over. Apparently, there's some sort of legislation that was recently passed forcing him to seek an extension if no deal had been hammered out. He did. He just refused to sign the document. As far as I know, that doesn't breach the actual law. So, I mean, he's in the clear. He's made it clear that he doesn't want an extension, that he and his political faction there at least want a hard Brexit, that it's other people that are ham-tying the UK's government function and dragging this out because they're Remainers. They don't want to leave the EU. They want to stay in global authoritarianism because it makes them more money, which is what it's about. It's just about these people guarding their own income. They know that as long as the EU is there, then they can, they have globalized money in their globalized banks, and they can continue to fleece and shill, and they can make more money that way. If they have to operate on a national level, it's more difficult for the dishonest when you have national sovereignty. Once you get full free movement of both people and money and goods and services, and so forth, and everything's very streamlined, it makes it much easier to offshore money. It makes it much easier to invest in a foreign country for malicious purposes. Like, let's say all the globalists in the UK, they've got money in the EU, they've got money in other countries too. If the UK's economy collapses because of their pandering, they don't care, because they can always pull out of the UK fiscally and put their money anywhere else that they want. Because they're the modern-day Gilded Age plutocrats. They own the monopolies, corporations, goods and services. They've strangulated the economies, and they give the poor welfare crumbs, and they call it the Labour Party. Or they give them a little bit more, call it the Liberal Democrats, well, again, globalizing further. The Conservative Party, so-called, over there is scarcely better. It seems like Nigel Farage is the only sane man in your country in politics. He should be your prime minister. You should, as he's stated, refuse the current deal because it's shitty. It's like the Theresa May agreement light. It's basically, you're still a slave of the EU, but you don't even have a vote. Only this time it'll be temporary, but afterwards, you're still gonna have to bow before half our regulation anyway. It's shitty. There's no reason to sign on to such a deal. This isn't a deal. This is just a shakedown of the UK by the EU. It should be rejected. The alternative being offered by the political establishment is, okay, well, we'll keep negotiating, but you've been negotiating for how long now and haven't achieved a deal? Why would the EU back off on any of the things that Boris Johnson himself, as an actual Brexiteer, has agreed to? Who are you going to get in there to get a better deal? How the hell are you going to structure it? It's not possible. It's physically impossible. I think you should, at this point, do what Nigel Farage said. If Boris Johnson's gambit doesn't work, and it probably won't, I'll point out how it could. It's a really long shot thing, but I don't think it will. Get your extension, hold an election, get the Brexit Party into power, and make it clear you want a clean break. Punish the Labour Party, punish the left, do whatever you can. You're going to need near 100% turnout among people who supported Brexit to try to save your democracy and rip it out of this globalist authoritarianism. Otherwise, your country will fail. It looks like the struggle of this generation of Brits won't be on a battlefield. It'll be in a ballot box. That's what it basically boils down to. We'll see if the people of the UK are truly complacent if that ends up happening. The only other long shot option is that there are murmurings from Macron and his people that they might not want to grant the extension. The Merkelites, most of the people in the EU's authorities, they want an extension. They want a Brexit deal, mainly because they want money. They want the UK to remain a vassal, a slave. The French don't seem to care. I think are tired of competing with the UK on a diplomatic level and might just try to kick them out and punish them further once they're out of the EU. Ironically, the egotism of the same globalist leaders within the EU could therefore prevent the UK from getting an extension, force them out of the EU with a clean break, which gives the Brexiteers exactly what they want and what the UK desperately needs. If you're going to have a deal at all, it should be an amiable deal that, respects the UK as an actual functioning nation state and a former member of the EU, not punishes it as a slave to be scorned and mocked. But that's exactly what this deal appears to be. Maybe Boris Johnson, in his wildest fever dreams, thought, well, I'll just have a deal that's so shitty that it'll be rejected. And then because of that, eventually they'll stop extending things and we'll have a Brexit. Maybe that's the strategy that's at play. I think Nigel Farage should be doing things. I think Nigel Farage is the only one. He's been the main architect of Brexit all along. There's really no reason for anyone else to be at the fore at this point. That's about all. Peace out.